Harris, I want to pick it up in terms of it's interesting that when I asked you, what do you think of FTX, that you went back to the collapse of those stable coins. We almost have forgotten it because there's so much news surrounding FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. But it's interesting. What does it tell you about the entire ecosystem if, as you say, the algorithms maybe caused the stable coins to collapse, or maybe it was how they were built, because somebody has to build the algorithms. I always want to point out that there's a person at the beginning of these things, I think, at least still. What does it tell you, though, about the entire system if that can happen?
Well, the entire system is built on math and code, and that system will evolve with time and become better and better. And there are things that blockchain and crypto will be good at where it has high utility. And just as importantly, there will be things that it's not really good at, that it will have low utility and it won't be a factor. But when you look at FTX, you know, they came in kind of as the Fed over the summer to the sector, made a bunch of loans to entities that were, imperiled by the margin calls. And then, of course, part two, Catherine, of the story, which is going to make a hell of a good movie someday, was
Yes.
you had the CoinDesk article on November 2, which was, the second stage of the collapse, where they questioned Alameda's balance sheet, which had about 5 billion of FTT, which is FTX's native token. When Binance saw that, ZZ immediately announced that they would be selling their FTT. FTT, there was a run, as you would understand, these things are all about confidence. Once there was a run, FTT came off 75% in 24 hours. So then you had margin collapse all across the ecosystem again, and you had Alameda massively offside. There was a failed rescue by Binance. And then, as we all know, the stuff hit the fan pretty hard. But then we get into a discussion. So we've done the algorithmic source, and then it's collateral, which we're all pretty used to. And then you get into, okay, what was FTX? Well, FTX was an exchange that also owned a prop trading house. Typically, that would be viewed as a conflict. FTX was providing custody to its customers, which meant even after doing trades, they were leaving funds on the platform, which meant if there was commingling and the company went bankrupt, your funds would be locked into the bankruptcy process, which we've seen happen. So we know that commingling appears to have occurred. And then there's just a breakdown in good old-fashioned credit, collateral, concentration, correlation, things that, folks that have been in the space for quite some time are pretty respectful of. And just from the commentary, there appears to be, some sort of lack of understanding of how the various pieces fit together. And that's obviously, we saw this, Madoff in 2007, Enron. A lot of times you see a derivative lead to fraud. And how many times have we heard about someone whose intellectual capacity exceeds that of the market? And as soon as I hear that, I'm like, this is not a good scenario.
You mean where they're apparently just so smart, the smartest person in the room is smarter than everybody else? Red flag?
Yeah, I recall, long-term credit, which was a bunch of Nobel laureates who apparently understood non-standard currencies better than anyone else, and they made money hand over fist until their algorithm broke, and the correlation on the currencies broke, and they went to zero. So, we've heard this story time and again. I think that the big key will be, how does this impact blockchain going forward?
Right.
That's going to be a real key.
What do you think?
Well, I think this is going to be a broad-scale disruptor of confidence, especially institutional confidence in the space. So adoption will slow. We'll also get, this was an exchange. You've already seen the SEC commenting on potential additional regulation. Clearly, we're going to have to figure out something different on the token front, because we've got a proliferation of tokens, many of which are worthless. So
Right.
we'll see that shake out, but you're definitely going to see more regulation. That doesn't mean that, you know, crypto's at an end or blockchain's at an end. I certainly don't hold that view.